Before we get going, I was just going to say, when we knew that we were going to be presenting here, you always want to be best at something. And I know I'm probably not going to be the best breakout speaker you see, but I thought, maybe I can be the best tall, bald breakout speaker. And then Shaq shows up. And I'm like, I just got no chance here. So my new goal, second best bald breakout speaker. So here we go. This is data on the right trajectory, ensuring data quality from start to finish. My name is Jeff Keene. I'm a senior marketing analyst at Trajectory Data. About 3 years experience there, working with retail, food service, fitness clients. Really focus more on the front end, working with clients, creating reporting decks, talking through insights, trying to drive growth for our clients.
I'm Ashlyn Wade. I am the manager of data operations at Trajectory. I've been there for about 6 years. I work with a handful of different clients. I mostly work on the back end, getting all the data into Domo, cleaning it up, making sure it's accurate for our analysts to use.
And before we get going into our ensuring data quality, just a couple quick moments on Trajectory and who we are. We are an inside strategy and measurement agency. We work with two sister agencies, 9 Rooftops, which is primarily creative, and Mindstream, which is primarily media. And we're really created to serve them as an analytics agency with just a little bit of separation. There's always concern with marketing agencies that have embedded analytics, that they're kind of grading their own homework, right? So being a separate agency gives us a little bit more ability to really be objective and follow the data wherever it leads. And one other cool thing about Trajectory and what we do is that we are kind of a method agnostic agency. We don't necessarily have one tool that we've built that we're trying to sell to everyone. Instead, we have 4 teams, strategy, data science, analytics, research. And whatever problem comes through our door, we just do our best to figure out which disciplines are going to be most effective to help solve that problem and really customize our solution to whatever the client needs. But enough about Trajectory. This is about data quality and data trust. And really what we want to talk about today is this realization that we had, which is that when users don't trust the data on the dashboards cease to be useful. And that's not just a problem internally and externally, it is a problem for everyone involved. It reduces the efficiency of everyone if data trust is impaired at all. And we have a lot of data that we need to QA. And we don't have a whole lot of people to QA it. And I'd imagine some people in the room are in that same boat where we were. So we found a way to centralize processes and QA them, which really improved data quality. And then the final step of that was making sure we get out to our internal stakeholders and explaining to them what that process is so that they can be completely confident in the data that they're accessing. So to tell this story, we're actually going to start with a little bit of a persona. So here we have Alex D, analyst. The D is for data, of course. And you can tell that Alex is not just a substitution for me because I have glasses and no hair, and Alex has hair and no glasses. So this is a completely fictional story here. But Alex is a senior marketing analyst, and you look at the pie chart and you kind of see what you expect to see for a senior marketing analyst, right? About a third of Alex's time scheduled reports. He's got monthly, he's got QBR, he's got weekly for some clients. Has to be done, right? You've got meetings, you've got some ad hoc reports, you've got a lot of meetings that could have been emails. But where Alex really wants to spend his time, 31% I think we have marked there, is doing active campaign monitoring. A new campaign gets in market, Alex wants to go look at that data right away and make sure that he's looking for any optimizations that need to be made, anything that can be done quickly to respond fast. So I want to walk you through the life of Alex this week. One of Alex's clients just launched a new campaign, and Alex knows that, and he knows that he's going to start off Monday at 8 a.m. like a good little analyst, and he is going to check on that new campaign launch. So he gets into the office, he's all excited, check on new campaign launch, and here comes an internal stakeholder. Hey, Alex, for client A, how much did we spend in Meta back in January of 23? And Alex takes a moment and thinks, well, that's on the dashboard that you have access to, but it's just going to take me like a couple minutes to grab that, and I want to be a good friend. I'll grab it for you real quick. So Alex does, and he sends it back and says, hey, it looks like we spent about $50,000 in Meta. Let me know if there's anything else you need. And he finishes that. It takes about 15 minutes, and Alex thinks, okay, now here we go. I'm going to get to that part of my day where I deliver value for my clients. I'm going to go check on that new campaign launch and see what I see. And here comes another internal user. Hey, Alex, what was our cost per acquisition last quarter? And Alex, once again, thinks that's on the dashboard, but it's just going to take me a few minutes to pull. Let me grab that for you real quick. And he says, kind of passive aggressively, here's a screenshot from the dashboard that you have access to of the CPA during Q4. It's trended by week. Let me know if there's anything else I can do for you. You guys know where we're going with this. We could do this for the next 40 minutes. Alex is going to do this for the next 3 hours. But we'll move on to the next part here. And really, the problem is that Alex D analyst, the D isn't for data anymore, the D is for discouraged. Because Alex isn't a senior marketing analyst, Alex is an overpaid dashboard concierge. That whole big chunk of time, 31% of his time, that Alex wanted to be spending delivering value for his clients, he's actually spending answering questions that people should be able to answer themselves. And why does that happen? There's a lot of reasons it could happen. Is it because they can't access the dashboard? I am not going to roll into Domopalooza and say that we have access problems. We don't. We use Domo everywhere. It's awesome. Everything works as expected. We love it. I'm not going to say that we have problems with people not knowing how to use the dashboard. Again, the filters, the variables, our dashboard's well constructed, well trained. We keep things pretty consistent client to client. That's not it. How about the trust of the data within the dashboard? We did an internal survey, and that survey showed that only 28% of our internal users felt extremely confident in the accuracy of the data displayed on dashboards. And what I want you to think about is how it can only take one bad experience for that to really poison someone's trust in a dashboard for years. So imagine if you were an account executive and you get a message in the morning from a client, and the client says, hey, about to go into my board meeting, I need this figure from you. Can you pull it real quick? They run to the dashboard, they pull the number, and they send it over, right? And then they get out of the meeting, and they hear back from the client, that was the wrong number, because the data was wrong. How long do you think it takes as an account executive to really feel confident to go back to your dashboard and access that data? It's going to take a while. It takes a while to get over that. So we need a lot more than 28% feeling extremely confident in the accuracy, because if they're not extremely confident, they will be hesitant to use it, and it's going to slow down everybody in the organization. But there's a problem here, and our problem is that Alex can't fix this. Oops.
Oh, sorry.
Alex can't fix this alone. Within our agency,
Go.
within our agency, just in the last year, added 12 new clients. We're managing roughly 6,000 campaigns across 11 digital platforms. New digital media is changing, cropping up all the time. Sometimes Google likes to change the way a dimension is pulled or the name of the dimension or something like that. I'm sure all of you are dealing with this, whether you're an advertising agency or something completely different. The speed of data is a problem for all of us, right? So I can't solve this problem. We need a hero. We need a data engineer. So introducing you to Alexis D. Engineer. The D again, of course, is for data. Can you help solve this problem?
Sure, no problem. So Alexis went and looked at how they were currently pulling all of their data for their clients into Domo, and she saw that it was really siloed. Each client was in its own little world. The analyst would pull the data for that specific client, QC it on whatever basis they needed to, and it just had a lot of spaces where something could go wrong. So there were just so many different fail points of pulling the data through in the flow, things that could go wrong somewhere and make the data potentially inaccurate. So she went back to the drawing board of how we could easily get the data from the platform into the client dashboards in a way that was very flexible because we're constantly adding clients, and it was scalable across everybody. So we started with creating master reports for each of our platforms. So instead of pulling 25 different Google ads, we have one Google ad pool, we have one Google flow that we use for all of our clients. We then filter it for our specific client, and that's what feeds the dashboard. So each client has their own flow. It filters the masters for that client and then combines them and transforms the data in whatever way we need. It also allows us to easily add some generic client data that's specific to those clients as well, that may not be in our masters. It might be data that they send us, sales data or GA data, to support our media efforts. But it allows us to be very flexible there and incorporate it easily. Oh, sorry.
I heard you mention there going from like 25 Facebook connectors down to one, and then the overall, like if you can imagine for each platform, reducing how many different ones there are. So I'm sure that's a big part of it, but also like, was everything being pulled the same? Yeah. Like, could have I gone from client A to client D and known that the meta connector had been pulled with the same criteria before?
Yeah, so before, whenever everybody was pulling it separately, they pulled it based off of whatever they need at the time, whatever granularity they need at the time. So our master pools are down to the ad day granularity as far as we can go usually. So everybody has anything that they might need, but also across the different platforms, since we have the master ones and everybody's not re-pulling things that we already have, we have the structure on the back that everything is named consistently across. So when you're moving from client to client, conversion action is always conversion action. It's not activity, or it's not conversion name, and it's always the same thing, and you know what you're looking for. So it helped a lot on the client ETLs that everything was named consistently, everything lines up for us, and we just filter and append it all together. Questions in the middle? Okay. Sorry, we'll do questions at the end. So that decreased our spots where something could potentially fail from hundreds of different pools down to about 5 different spots. We still have quite a few fail points across all of the different clients, but it went from around, estimating that we had 25 clients, 250 points to about 90. So decreased that a lot, and our QC process does allow us to check a lot of them at the same time. So when you're checking them in mass, it doesn't feel like 90 points, but we had a lot less places where something could potentially go wrong. So we developed 5 different levels of QC that we do, starting with the platform and the master ETL. So I have this dashboard that I check every morning. It's emailed to me through a scheduled report, and it has every single master pool we have and every single master flow. So I can make sure that it ran when it was supposed to, everything is up to date, and everything is on time, so the client flows can run and be up to date every morning. Our accuracy threshold for this, we did 100% because it runs or didn't run. There's not really a whole lot of wiggle room there. And I check it every single day, every morning. Just a preview of it. At the top, we have a little Gantt chart, so it's very easy to see if something is behind, just max min date. And then below, I have a section for each of the platforms. So it has a list of the clients that we're pulling for that platform, and then each of the individual pools. And we have the videos on that. Each of the individual pools and the flow as well, output of the flow. And then we use the data stats just to make sure that all of the inputs ran before the output of the data flow, to make sure everything was up to date when the flow ran. And this is and I check it every morning. It's emailed to me just to make sure that everything is up to date.
One of the things I saw there as it was going through the video is the summary numbers. And this might be something a lot of people know, but how do you use those summary numbers to trigger an alarm? Like what's the thing you're doing there that minimizes the work you have to do?
Yeah, so we have a card built on all of our master pools and all of our master reports that is hard filtered to only show the last 30 days. And then the summary number is just a count of the unique days. So if it were to not run one day, that count would go from 30 days in the data to 29 days. And so it's really easy for me to be able to be like, hey, that doesn't say 30, so I need to check on it. So it's very quick and easy to see. Our next level is the master reports. So this is a manual report that we do about every quarter to double check that what's being pulled in the pools is matching back to the platform. So 99% of the time, the pools are 100% accurate. So we have a little bit of a different threshold for this one of obviously things change. The platform will be like, will it reconcile bot traffic? So there's a little bit of a difference. So our accuracy threshold in this one is 99.95. It's usually only off by like a couple of cents, a couple of impressions. And then our conversions is a little lower just because the platforms do backfill conversions. So they can tend to be off compared to what's in the platform because you can pull it in the morning and then by the afternoon, the numbers will be drastically different. So we have a little bit more grace there. But since it's such a manual process, I only do it quarterly just as a check to make sure nothing happened in the platform that we weren't showing in Domo. And we have an overall dashboard for this that you can filter for client, filter for platform, look at different metrics with variables. And this is the only dashboard that we actually export and keep. All of the rest of the dashboards are kind of just like a live documentation. They live in Domo always, but we do export and keep this one on a quarterly basis just as a double check for us and a double check for the agencies that we work with that, hey, the data on the dashboard is matching the platform. Next, we have the client ETLs. So in the big picture at the beginning, this is where we filter the master flows, we combine them and transform them as we need to present onto our client dashboards. So we want to make sure that everything that's going on in those flows isn't accidentally duplicating data somehow, isn't accidentally filtering something out that we want to keep. So this just validates that process of, hey, nothing's going wrong in your flow. The accuracy threshold of 99.9 is mostly just because like sometimes we round sometimes we don't. So it'll be off by like a couple of cents, but other than that, it almost always matches perfectly. We use alerts for this one. We have different cards filtered for each client. And so if something is off, it will alert us. So it's technically checked constantly every time the flow runs. But if anything is different, it doesn't match from the beginning to the end, we are alerted and we can go and fix it. So we have an overall dashboard that has all of the clients that I look at on occasion, but we also filter a card and it lives on our maintenance pages, which we'll show later for each individual client. So you don't have to come in here and filter it for your clients, but you can if you really want to. And then we have filter for each of the different platforms, and then below we have the table just comparing the two. So you can easily see that those all match down to the cent.
So I know in the last one for the master reports, it was pretty rare to catch an error there because it was largely just an append of all of those different polls, right? But what kind of things do you catch here? What kind of things go wrong at this stage?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we have problems with in the client flows is keys and joining in keys, because those are pretty easy to duplicate on accident or if you don't really know what you're doing. But this just ensures that we're not doing anything there. Also, occasionally filtering. So sometimes we filter out media we're not running, but it's still in the platform. So we just want to make sure that we're not accidentally filtering anything out that we don't want to, accidentally duplicating anything, and that the data that's in the masters, which has already been checked that matches the platform, is what's being presented on the client's dashboard. Next, we have that client data. This is just to make sure that anything we're pulling in to support our media efforts, so that could be sales, could be call, could be GA, just depends on the client. We want to make sure that we're pulling it in, that it's up to date, and it's as accurate as it can be. So on each maintenance page for the clients, we have a section called unique pulls. So it's not a master pull, and it's unique to that specific client. We use the Domo stats to show here's all of the inputs that are not masters in that flow. And then we build a QC card with that same alert logic on each of those inputs. We also have a section for manual pulls. We don't use these as often because they're annoying, but we do have a section here just to make sure that everything is up to date if we're manually updating it. And the alerts on this one's slightly different. instead of using a day count, we use day behind. So if they update, sometimes clients, they send us information on like a weekly basis, but it's not like always on a weekly basis. It's when they remember to send it to us. So we'll have an alert that will be like, hey, this is 8 days behind. So you need to reach out to whoever gives you this data so you know that needs to be updated if you don't remember.
And that's where you customize the alarms a lot too, right? Like you could, if there's one client that maybe sends data every 30 days and another one that's 60, could you customize the alarms?
Yeah, so you can do it for whatever cadence that they send it to you, weekly, monthly. I think this one's technically quarterly because 64 days behind. So whatever cadence that they send it to you, you can have that sort of mark of, hey, this is this amount of time behind, and we should probably look to see why. And then finally, for our, whoa, wrong button. I don't know what I just did. There we go. For our last one is our client dashboard maintenance pages. So we have one of these for each of our clients. It is just an overview of this is everything that we have for this client, everything that's included in their flow, how up to date it is, the last time the flow updated. It's just a spot of information for us internally as well as our agencies that we work with, so they know that everything is up to date. And so it has trend charts at the top, budget versus spend, and then our naming conventions. So each client, we have slightly different naming conventions that we have outlined. We have QC cards for those naming conventions, and then that master versus platform, and then the manual and unique pulls for each client. So it's just like a one-stop, here's everything about this client and the data that we have in Domo for them.
A couple things on that one. One, just seeing the cards there, especially under naming conventions that were like else uncategorized. Could you talk about the uncategorized data a little bit and how you use that to kind of alert us right away?
Yeah, so in our client flows, a lot of the times we have little buckets that we make of, here's your market, here's your campaign groups, however we want to, whatever breakdowns we need. So we add those in the flow and formula tiles, just using like case when statements. And then at the end of every single one of those, we do else uncategorized. So if it doesn't match our naming convention, it will come in as uncategorized, and then the alert will tell us, hey, a new campaign came in, somebody wrote SLC instead of Salt Lake City, and so we know that we need to go in there and update our formula so it matches the new naming convention of that campaign.
And I think too, just one thing about this whole process and these 5 different areas is essentially what you've done is every single time the data is changed through an ETL process, you're taking what was there before and what was there after and making sure that nothing unexpected happened.
Yeah, so a lot of them are, the first one is, did it run? And then once it ran, from the start to beginning, did what we put into the flow and what we pulled out of the flow, did the totals match? Like, did we accidentally do anything in between that would mess up the totals, that would make the data less accurate? So a lot of it is, anytime we're running it through an ETL, anytime we're pulling something, making sure it ran the way that it was supposed to. So if y'all would like to develop your own QC process like Alexis, here's a bit of the process that we went through to develop ours. Pause pictures. So you'll want to start with minimizing those fail points that we talked about. Before we had roughly 200 fail points, or 250, and we just decreased that as much as we could down to about 90. And you'll want to determine those inspection stages. So as Jeff just mentioned, anytime it goes into a flow, from before it hits the flow to after it hits the flow, did we do anything in between that messed up the data in some way? So you want to make sure that that's usually a cue that that's your inspection stage. So anytime it goes into a flow. And then we have a lot of these scattered throughout there. So determining what tools you use. So we use alerts, variables, the scheduled reports, and the Domo stats pretty heavily. I know Domo has lots and lots of tools that you can use. So determining what those tools are that you have access to, how you can use them, defining your limits of acceptable difference. So all of ours were, hey, this ran, didn't run, except for matching against the platform. So we had a little bit of a grace there because data shifts. So whatever level that is for you, ours were, I mean, they're pretty high up there. And then set the frequency of how often you check it. So if you're using alerts, it's super great. It checks it constantly for you, and it only tells you, hey, something's wrong. So the other ones, we checked the platform about quarterly just because it's a manual process and it takes time. And then the other one is checked daily because it's pretty quick. So just whatever those time periods are for you. You'll want to make sure that you have this all outlined and you train your staff on it, assigning roles of who's supposed to do what. If an alert comes in, who's responsible for handling it, how would they react to it, and make sure that everybody knows that information and everybody is trained on how to react to the different problems you may have. You also want to continually improve the process, so review it every quarter, make sure that there's any new platforms you need to incorporate into your QC process, any new areas you need to incorporate, and then take any corrective or preventative action. So one of the things that we did are pulls every morning. They ran, and I kept getting ones that would fail on occasion, just because APIs are fun. And so I would just go in and literally just hit run, and it would rerun. It would be perfectly fine. So I went on all of our platform pulls for our masters, and I just set it to rerun again after 15 minutes. So it didn't have to wait for me to log in the morning and rerun it, and then rerun the masters, and then all the client flows had to rerun. So everything is up to date when it's supposed to be up to date instead of waiting for me to log in the morning. And then incorporate any feedback from your team, from external teams, of if they see anything wrong, obviously that's a feedback point of, hey, we need to QC this area more, and then just adjusting your process as you go. So that could be incorporating new platforms as you use them, or incorporating any of that feedback that you're getting. And then finally, reporting and communicating your results. So our dashboards that we walk through, a lot of them are just live reporting for us. As I mentioned, the only one that I download and keep is that platform versus master check, just for our own peace of mind that we know it matches and we have proof that it matches. But having that documentation for everybody, all of our agency partners, they have access to those maintenance pages for their clients, so they know that everything's up to date and they're confident that everything is up to date. And then finally, fostering a culture of quality. So we have done a couple of different presentations with our agencies of hey, this is how we're pulling data into Domo, how we're checking it, how we're double and triple checking that everything that you're seeing in the dashboards matches the platform. So you don't have to double check, you don't have to question it. It is right, and here is our proof that it is right. But just telling everybody and being very transparent about what you're doing, whether or not they fully understand it, they want to know, because it helps with their confidence level of, hey, this is being checked constantly, and I know that what I'm looking at the dashboard is correct. So hopefully, potentially, you're helping your analysts not have as much dashboard concierge.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that just a little bit more this morning in the main session. And if I could have added one slide at the end to our presentation here, because I think a great job, of talking about all of the tools that Domo makes available to automate the QA process to make sure you have clean data. But clean data is not enough. It does not matter if your data is clean if your stakeholders, internal and external, don't believe it is. The best thing that we've done recently is take presentations like this and give them to our internal stakeholders. Clean data just will not get it done for you. It doesn't matter if it's clean if the users don't think it is. And remember, you have to keep in mind, if somebody's had a bad experience, whether it was your fault or not, at some point with one of your dashboards, the amount of trust that you lose from one bad experience and how much time it takes to rebuild that. So I think, yeah, great going through the whole process of how we did it, but don't forget that last step. I really think that that's critical. And finally, I just have to say thank you for cleaning up our data and rescuing me from the life of a dashboard concierge.
That's literally my job.
And finally, that is our LinkedIn, and if you want to learn more about trajectory there. And I think we have a couple minutes for questions, if there's any questions.
We have about 8 minutes.
All right, so when you were bringing in your data and starting to standardize it, did you change the naming conventions through ETL, or were you working through the data set and making the changes there? Because ETLs can kind of get lost on the next report if someone isn't using your same data set.
We mostly do it through ETLs. That's a lot of what we do. Though nobody is really allowed to edit the master ETLs. So as long as nothing happens in there, they're set. I know that nothing is changing. The master outputs are always going to be the same unless something different happens on the platform. And then we kind of just have like a general PSA of like, hey, I'm changing this thing. So if you need to use the master report, this new column is added, this column changed slightly for this reason. But yeah, we mostly use the ETLs for those.
How do you dodge when the data that's been entered is incorrect versus when the data that you're receiving is incorrect? So a lot of this presentation was on data changing at the source systems, but what happens, I guess the example would be, if the top 5 lost codes and everyone is other, it's because the users are entering it incorrectly. And that causes the stakeholders to think that the data is wrong, but it's actually the user base.
Good question.
That is a good question.
Yeah, I feel like we just had this problem with one of our clients that it was data that they're sending to us and we were thinking it was accurate and they're like, actually, no, it's not. But I think it's just doing those regular checks of, because a lot of ours are on the platform, so we easily match it back to the platform. Most of the time, whenever clients send us data, we trust that what they're sending us is accurate.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to think of
trust but verify, right?
Yeah.
Like I will say, because I think that we do a really good job with this process, the number of times that we've had a client send us data that they're using on their internal dashboards and they just want to have it displayed in Domo so they can all have it in one place at the same time. And we've discovered errors in like maybe the logic of how it was populated or the way it was inputted and everything. It's a lot.
Yeah, thankfully most of the time they're like, oh, we know it's wrong.
Right. Or thank you, for helping us fix it.
Yeah.
But a little bit of both for sure. But I do think that just having such a clear, transparent process and being so intentional about it has put us in a position where the worst case scenario there is that we can communicate back clearly to them why it's wrong or what's went wrong.
Here.
I just have
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat that question in the mic?
We'll bring you a mic.
My voice doesn't normally translate to no. This is probably a stupid question, but when you're doing QA, you were like comparing what the data set said to some sort of master number, and that's how you were saying it's going to be 100%. What's the master number?
So-
Like, where do you get the number?
Yeah, so we have.
It was a budget thing.
We have each of our platforms, we pull it in, and that's our master report. So it has all of our clients for Facebook, all of our clients for Google. We have one for each platform. And then those is what we use for the client. So when they're in each client flow, we check that the master data set matches the client output. So when we're not doing anything in those client ETLs for each individual client that could mess up the data in some way and make it inaccurate.
Because sometimes lowly front-end analysts like myself do silly things with the beautiful, clean master reports that she puts together. So that's just one more check, yeah.
got one more question, I think.
Yes, hi. When you surveyed your stakeholders and you found the 28% did not trust the data, did you ask other questions as well? And if so, did anything else pop out? And if not, is there anything else that you might suspect that would cause someone to be this dashboard concierge? So I definitely run into that.
Yeah, we asked like a handful of just general questions, like how do you feel about navigating Domo and like navigating our dashboards? I think the top thing that like kind of popped out was like they're like, oh, I want more time with my analyst, and which obviously is kind of hard for us to do on scale. But I'm trying to remember what other big takeaways we had from that, but I feel like that was the biggest one that I kept seeing. Yeah, they kept asking for like trainings and walkthroughs. I think we had one person that was like, can we have AI? I was like, we're working on it.
Yeah. I think though, just generally, it was a really good exercise to get that survey out and just get the results back, because it was not a survey just about data trust. It was a survey about how do you use it, what information are you looking for, what do you feel needs to be improved, do you trust it? And we did get some really interesting feedback from, I need a little bit more training, to, I had this bad experience with it. So definitely would recommend, if you're not surveying your internal users occasionally and kind of keeping a benchmark of how you're growing in those areas, to do it. Because again, clean data is not enough. They've got to know how to use it. They've got to trust it. They've got to believe in it.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
When you're going through this, do you incorporate any sort of data dictionary product or something to manage your metadata? Because so a lot of times in adoption that I'm getting is that you provide all this terminology, but then every department, depending on what you're talking about, they use a different terminology, or the formula, the calculations could be a little different. I'm just curious if you've guys, how you manage that.
That's actually something I have in the works. We, thankfully for like media, a lot of it's pretty standard. Occasionally we'll have some formulas that like conversion rate, do you use like clicks or do you use impressions based off of what different channel you're using? So usually if we're using it on a client dashboard and there is a question, we'll just have like a glossary at the bottom of like, hey, this is how we're defining this, this is how we're defining this. I am working on a documentation for all of our masters of, hey, when Snapchat says video views, that's a 3-second view versus Facebook is a 4-second view or something along those lines. TikTok is 2 seconds. Everybody says it differently. So that is in the works for us, yeah.
And I think one place where that is well implemented is like on the naming conventions, like we were talking about, like if you're running a campaign that's targeting Salt Lake City, we want it to say for this client SLC or Salt Lake City or whatever it is in the campaign name. And that you have in a Google sheet, right?
So for the naming conventions, we have a Google sheet for each client that we have access to and the platform teams will have access to, so they can update it if they need to. If we're like launching a new market, they can put it in there and then we'll be able to see it and update our naming conventions are RN. But yeah, they live on the master, sorry, not the masters. They live on the maintenance pages for each client.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is they're not just in Google Sheets, but if you're scrolling through that client level QA dashboard, it's available there for everybody to see as
We
well.
have a nice brick that pulls it in for us.
Yeah, yep. Trying to make it a one-stop shop. All right, I think that's it for time. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.